Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Missions America podcast. Missions America is a ministry of the Assemblies of the Lord Jesus Christ, and the mission of this podcast is to put tools and resources into the hands of anyone looking to plant a church in a new city, or perhaps take their church to the new level of growth that they're looking for. I'm your host of today's show, Stephen Trachsel, and I am the director of the Missions America department, and I am having a wonderful time working with such a great team of people. Today, I am joined by a wonderful friend and pastor, Marty Ethridge. Wonderful pastor. He is an okay father, is what I've been told. Actually, today's show, his son, Gavin, is helping. He's behind the scenes of one of our cameras. So, Gavin, I assume if I say your dad's a good dad, he's a good dad? I got a partial nod on that. He's kind of like,
he's smiling,
he's okay.
Though. He's smiling. Yeah.
He's an okay guy. Amen. Did he ever tell you any dad jokes? No dad jokes. Okay. Dad. All right. We'll have to
stay away from
Anyway, Pastor Ethridge is a home missions pastor in the wonderful city of Jonesville, Michigan, God's country up here in Michigan. Yes. And so glad to have him here with you. How you doing all right today?
I'm doing great, man.
Amen.
It's good to be in Clawson.
Awesome to have you on the show today. So let's get started with just right out of the gate. Where exactly is the church located in Jonesville, the address?
Our church is right in the heart of Jonesville, 501 Old Street. That is right in the heart of Jonesville, and our service times are Sunday morning, 11 a.m., and Thursday night Bible study at 6:30.
Okay. So if you're in the area of Jonesville, Michigan, man, go see this family, this pastor. They're doing a great job, seeing great things happen, powerful moves of God's Spirit in their church, and it's a journey from the ordinary. It's definitely not ordinary, and you'll enjoy what you are hearing and seeing when you go to their church, Mission Apostolic Church in Jonesville. Pastor Ethridge and his family have 1 year almost in January under their belt in Jonesville, and I've been able to see what's happening, been able to talk with him about what God is doing, and very excited about watching and hearing what God is doing there for you and your family. And so with all that, that's why I wanted to do today's podcast and discuss the topic that we're discussing, which is church planting. And you being a church planter, really wanted to pick your brain on someone that's maybe watching the show today or listening about stepping out into the world of church planting. There's some staggering numbers that I found looking up about churches and just churchgoers in general. And we've in America about 330 million people live in this great country we call home. And in our country, I believe over like 19,000 incorporated cities and towns. Yet in those cities and towns, 100 million of the 330 million people, according to BarnaInstitute.com, their studies show that 100 million don't attend church of any kind here in America. And that's a third of the population of people. And so it tells me that America needs revival. Absolutely. America needs men and women with a burden to reach this country with the gospel. And so today, our show, I'd like to encourage someone that perhaps is facing certain fears about stepping out by faith and saying, I will go. I will be a home missions pastor. And so, Pastor, you definitely did that. You stepped out by faith, and you are succeeding, is what I would consider succeeding as a home missions pastor. And I'd love for you to today to tell us a little bit about the start of your journey and how things came to be there in Jonesville, and really what makes a person leave the comforts of an established church with friends and familiar faces to go out and begin a brand new work when it'd be very easy just to stay at home and be comfortable.
Sure, absolutely, Pastor Trachsel. It's just, can I say today that out of full transparency, it's a struggle. It's not easy.
Thank you for saying that.
Just be very transparent.
Yeah.
You need a team of people. You can't do it on your own. We've been involved and active in ministry for many years. But recently, the last couple of years, my wife and I and our family knew that God had, a greater, more effective purpose. And can I say, backing up a little bit, that I don't know that the term successful is really utilized versus being effective. We, over the last 12 months, I feel like our ministry and our community efforts have been very effective because it was birthed out of passion. It was birthed out of a burden. I believe that emotion, me, myself, being a real in-depth introvert and not being a real go-getter in the past, and this was a journey that needed a self-starting personality that was very extroverted. My wife, on the other hand, is an extrovert. She loves to be involved in games and be that person. But
you don't play games?
I do.
Okay.
A little bit. Yeah, Gavin's my game player,
Okay.
but it's hard for me to step out of my comfort zone.
Right.
And I know that there's some men out there and ladies today that are in that same position. Yeah. It's hard to step out of that comfort zone. We were in multiple different roles between our organization, the church, the local home ministry there at church, and it was hard to come to that place of realizing that, man, God can do something greater if we'll give him that opportunity to do so.
Right.
And so getting to that place, I didn't realize a few months beforehand last summer that our home pastor, Pastor Scott in Jackson, Michigan, had felt a few months prior to me exposing the burden and the passion of this. He actually was confirmed by it. The calling was confirmed through him. And I believe you've got to have people surrounding you. You've got to have ministry, people you can trust, people you can call on and rely on, and just be very transparent with you, whether it's pros or cons.
Right.
You need that voice to help you. So every pastor needs a pastor in their life.
Yeah.
And so we were effective in what we were doing, but there was just a pull and there was a tug in my spirit. I knew the need was Jonesville needed a work to be done. We had done some business there, our shopping, our family had dinner there for the last several years. We just tried to do a lot of things in the community, just on a scratch-the-surface basis.
And let me ask you this, Jonesville, how do you feel? How did you know Jonesville was the place? Like, is it like a burning in their heart? How do you, of all the cities in the area, Jonesville of 2,000 people is what you said, how many people?
Correct.
What made you that be the city? Was it a vision, a dream, or was it just...
We had moved closer to that area, and so we started doing our day-to-day business there, and just fell in love with the people.
Yeah,
and the community. As we went into businesses and the emotions of what but we knew then it would take several years for us to move past the emotion status. That we were feeling connected. We did some research behind the scenes, and we understood that there was no apostolic Pentecostal work there.
Nothing.
And nothing was happening there on that aspect. And great community, great people. But I felt like the field was white, ready to harvest there. And it took some time to move past that emotion and feeling, because you can easily be overwhelmed with the spirit of fear. But God said, I've not placed the spirit of fear there, but of a sound mind. And the comfort being God's spirit. As we began to pray and seek direction, but our flesh kept saying, man, great things are going on at home. Why would you want to leave that?
Yeah.
But the truth was, God has a need there, and the people have a need, and so we answered that call, and our pastor had confirmed that, and was very transparent with us, and said we need to set up a plan. And that plan began to execute very quickly for us. It won't always be that way for everybody, but for us, God just began to trickle down the plan, and other people began to fill in the gaps of what we were so-called leaving behind, per se, even though we're still connected to the home church, and still connected. It's very important to stay connected.
Exactly.
Absolutely. You're not disconnecting. you're just extending the work of God.
So when you started some services like in Jonesville, were you still attending your home church?
We were, yes,
okay,
sir.
For a little
we were
time.
attending midweeks. We actually started in a coffee shop in Jonesville just by me going there throughout the week. Oftentimes I would meet people, just to ask how people are doing, what they do in the community. People were actually coming to me, asking me what I was doing there. They were inquisitive.
And I want to talk about that. But I would say before we say that, because I love what you talked about as far as one. You asked what does the community need to the manager of the city, which was awesome. But I would say this, and to your point, you said you kept going to your own church, right. And it makes me nervous when people say we're going to start a church, and they don't want to be connected to their home church. That's to me is a rogue person just wanting to go out and not having accountability, and so it's so important to have that.
Yep, and it's just like in the vocational world, you never burn a bridge. And right. I feel like with God, we're extending the ministry. We're not shutting a door of ministry to open another one. Right. That's not how it works with God. Right. Oftentimes our perception is, well, God's shutting one door and opening another. I don't know that that's really the truth of the matter, is because God does close opportunities off, but you need to keep the door open to the church, to your pastor, to ministry workers, people that you've surrounded yourself, because we've had years invested in doing a work for God, and we're not just closing that door there, but we're allowing that door to stay open so that we all help each other. Right. We're all the body of Christ.
So you said you were doing business in Jonesville, you fall in love with it. So now you see Jonesville as your mission, right?
Yes, sir.
So now you're not just going there to do banking. Now you're fishing. You're fishing. So yes, I love the story you tell about. It starts in a coffee shop. You started just going to the coffee shop on purpose. On purpose, right? I love the story of Jesus going to the well, right? On purpose. He knew that. So you found your Jacob's Well there in Jonesville, which is called. What's the name of the coffee shop?
Jilly's 2.
Jilly's.
Yeah.
Jilly's too. So if you're in the Jonesville area, go check out Jilly's coffee there.
It's an awesome place. The owner, Mary Ellen, she's great. She was one of the first people I connected with. Okay. And she just opened up her resources to us, and right from the first week. And so I had reached out to the city manager. I feel it's important, when we're going into a city or a community, I believe that we need to familiarize ourselves with the leadership of that area. Yeah. And so I didn't know any of the leadership in the community, and that was one of the first things I wanted to do. I wanted to get to know the city manager. I wanted to know the mayor. I started attending city council meetings. I wanted to know what was going on in the community of Jonesville, right, and the surrounding areas. And so I got a good feel of what was happening, what was going on. So I could take that to God in prayer, and I could begin to pray for the leadership in the community. Sure. And also pray for the situations that were going on at hand, at that time, because all that hinges upon how you're responding, what you're saying in the community, and what you're doing. People are watching you as a new person. Yeah. They are watching you, and they understand that you're there on a mission, and they're gonna watch your response or your reactions to situations that are going on in the community. Right. And so you're at a coffee shop. You're kind of watching around. You're going to these, and so finally, the situation where you reached out to the city manager. Yes, sir. Sent an email to him. What's his name? His name is Jeff Gray. Jeff Gray. Shout out to Jeff Gray, city manager of Jonesville, Michigan. Great guy. And you sent. I love the story because you sent out this letter. You're like, what can I do? Something like, maybe you can clear it up for me. You're like, what can I do to the city? And he's like, Am I being punked or what? He's like, is this a scam? That was his first. Within minutes, he responds back, and I'm sitting in the coffee shop just minutes away from his office, and he says, "Is this a scam?" And it was a realistic question. Isn't that sad that we're living in the world where it's like nowadays you knock on someone's door, everyone drops to the floor. Right? We're just waiting for the worst thing possible. So when someone actually wants to do something good for their city, someone just all of a sudden is on the defensive, like, why are you scamming me this? It is sad. Just where we're at. Yep. So you said, no, I really want to just help our city. I said, this is my wife and family, introduced ourselves on the email, and I said, we've been praying about something in Jonesville for several years, and we want to know what the community needs. What can we help with?
Such a good question.
And,
Such a perfect way to introduce yourself.
Yeah. So his response back was, where are you at? And when can we get together? And I said, well, matter of fact, right now I'm downtown, So he cleared his schedule. He came down to the coffee house and we met, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
It spurred a relationship there, and it's been great. I just can't. You have to build relationships with people.
Right,
before you go into an area. People don't know who you are, what you're there for, really what your behind the scenes intentions are. Like you said, the environment, the world we live in today, people are fearful of somebody, being a scam or ripping somebody off or, ill intent on something. Don't matter what you label yourself as a preacher or pastor or what, so you got to be genuine. You got to be real with people. And I felt like that right out of the gate, I had to be transparent. Mm-hmm. I had to be real, that I'm here. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for God's calling.
Right.
And I made that perfectly clear. And, that same week, the mayor was sitting in a coffee shop. I got to introduce myself to him. And from there on out, we just started feeling out the needs of the community.
Right.
And
what were the first? So if someone's, and what I love the pastoring mindset that we should have is, I'm pastoring a city. I'm not looking for just a small building, because people come and go into a building and they never affect their city.
Correct.
So what you're doing, you're digging roots into the city by making a difference before you even have a building, right? Some people are looking for a building. Yeah. Well, you're looking to make an impact in people's lives. So we ought to want to be seen in our city. We ought to want to be involved. We have a man from our church that's one of our council members of our city now. So he helps decides rules or laws for our city, which is awesome. And 4 years ago, I became the Clawson Police Department chaplain, just because I want to be with those guys. And so every Thursday, I spend my time at the city hall where the police station is, just studying or whatever, just being there, So the mindset that you're talking about is the absolute city pastor. I pastor a city, not just a group of people in a church. Which is so important.
That's correct, Pastor Trachsel. It and once people, it takes time to establish a trust, in a relationship. Yeah. And so I get that, in the spirit, time is running out. There's a great work to do, but you cannot push trust. It's timing. The purpose, the why, you've got to have the why behind everything.
Right.
You've got to have that true purpose and why you're doing what you're doing. We didn't start doing this because we had nowhere else to go or nothing else to do.
Exactly.
We had plenty of work at home that could have been done, even on a next level. But God said, man, I need a church and I need a community work to be done here. And I'm thankful that we heard that voice of God, and we had that passion and that burden to do so. Because it got to a point, they're at the beginning, not having a building, not knowing what, not really a group of people per se to come together and have a Sunday service. But we were casually meeting in a coffee house upstairs that had been opened up to us, by opportunity, and we just started brainstorming. We started praying. We just, and you've got to have prayer at the forefront of everything. You have got to pray about direction, because one wrong move, one wrong decision could cost that relationship with a community or a city.
Right.
And no matter what label you have or what church name or whatever it is, you can't afford to lose everything because you didn't take careful time to pray about it.
Right.
You've got to.
What are you guys doing right now for your city that you so now you had the moment where you're in the coffee shop, just for time we don't to talk about, then your stepbrother has a vision and everything that he's saying that you're right there. So you had the coffee shop moment, you talk to them, they know you're interested. What's the step you make now? What's the first thing you start getting involved in the city to where you're helping the city? Yep.
So I reached out to the local fire department. They invited me to a training last September 11th. And opportune time to go and pray with the fire department.
And that's only because you went out there and started meeting people.
Absolutely. Did you go to the fire department and talk to them first? Like yes.
You walked in there one day and just said, "Hey, I'm Just want to let you know who I am.
Introduce myself, and I said, hey, in remembrance and honor on September 11th, I want to do something for the fire department. And so they said, hey, we're having a training, 25, 30 guys, and we're going to invite you out there. And I went out there, and we prayed together. I talked to them, and I was out there with them a couple of hours, as a matter of fact. And one of the chiefs, I went up to him, and I said, hey, what can we do that Jonesville's never had, but yet you're out there in the field and you see the needs every single day? What do they need?
So you asked the chief of fire department.
Fire chief,
okay.
Yep. And Mr. Dean Adair told me he grew up in Jonesville, been there all of his life, and Jonesville never had like a fresh food or food pantry program of their own. They always gleaned off of other communities surrounding, but they never had anybody that carried that passion to do something in that area for local Jonesville residents. And I said, well, I'm going to start making some phone calls. And the next week, I started making phone calls to the food bank out of Battle Creek, and they said, Pastor, you're an answer to prayer.
Wow.
So we've been looking for somebody in the Jonesville area for the last 2 years, and couldn't get anybody to adopt that area for a food pantry and fresh food distributions. And so immediately we started pulling the trigger on that program for handing out fresh food. We had no budget, no money to work with. We had nothing. To look at it from a business perspective and ministry perspective, we didn't have anything. So total operation of faith.
Yeah.
And but I had that burning passion and desire that this has got to be the route we need to take. This is what's going to help build our trust in the community and help. Hey, everybody has some spiritual needs, but people got to eat too,
Right.
And as apostolics, we love to
right.
eat, we're not going to do without food, So we made that call. They set us up with some programs at that time, from a legal perspective. We started praying about, how do we run the food program and where do we do it at? We don't even have a building.
Right.
And
so this is all pre-building.
Yeah, this is all pre-building.
Yeah.
And so it was last December, here it is wintertime in Michigan, snow's on the ground, ice. Yeah, it's, not the most favorable conditions to hand out some food outside, And so the food bank had made the arrangements. The city manager gave me the idea of doing it downtown in the city park. Right in the heart of Jonesville, the Carl Fast Park downtown.
This is about a year ago.
A year ago.
So from the time you went to Jonesville to say I want to start a church, how many months after you started? Did you start?
It
this
was
food
about
giveaway?
2 to 3 months.
So that's a quick. I mean, that's quick.
It was quick.
Yeah.
From the time of being in the coffee house and the birthing process of something happening,
constantly pushing forward.
Yeah,
That's great.
And so now, obviously, there were some costs involved with the food program and things that God told me, just don't worry about it. Don't worry about the financial cost. This is something you need to do.
Right.
And so, obviously, not having a core team yet, just my wife, my boys, just a couple of us, that had come together for casual Bible study in a coffee shop.
So you guys, that's a good point. So you don't have a building, but you're having a Bible study at the coffee shop.
Yes, sir. On
And
Saturday
there's a
mornings.
second level up there.
Yep, the upper room we call it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's right. So you're having Bible study. So and that's an opportunity for you to invite people to the Bible study. Because you obviously don't have a building yet. So you guys start every
and just kept
Saturday.
it simple, giving people the vision of God's wanting to do something here, just trying to earn that respect and that trust, as an example of Christ in the community and why God sent us there.
Yeah.
Just projecting that vision. We're here to serve. We're here to help minister the things of God.
Right. Well, that's awesome. So you guys started passing the food out there at the
park. Yep.
And were you doing that every month or every
second Friday of the month?
Okay.
And we actually yesterday continuing that.
Big snowfall last night in Michigan.
Big snowfall last night. We were out there in the ice and the snow, giving out over 100 cases of food last night within 45 minutes.
So how many families is that? Is that 100 families or is that how is that?
Yep. So it generally a case of food per family. So we're usually servicing at least 100 families on one of those giveaways. But since then, the food bank came back to us wanting us to do another one. every month. They said the need was there, and
Yeah.
and they needed to help with that need. And so we actually do 2 a month now, plus a food pantry every week. Yeah.
Oh, food pantry every week. Wow,
Yep.
that's amazing. So, and you're getting people involved, I'm sure, in the city to help with that.
Absolutely.
Because people want to be a part of something,
Yeah.
and you're giving them that opportunity through. Now, this is called the Jonesville Mission, which is feeding
Yes,
the
sir.
hungry.
So we decided, and we felt it was the best path for us. This, won't always apply to everybody, but we needed a 501c3 that was geared toward community service.
Yeah.
That we would channel our food program through that. So we started the Jonesville Mission.
Okay.
So that we could utilize that resource to apply for grants in the community, and on a state level as well.
Right.
And we would have volunteers like the Rotary Club or the American Legion.
Yeah.
They could join the Jonesville Mission as a volunteer, and we could run all of our fresh produce and the food pantry and everything through the Jonesville Mission.
So obviously, Pastor Ethridge is doing a great job reaching his city, pastoring his city. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're wanting to start a church, we are beginning a process for the Adopted City program, which is home missions program for the Assemblies of the Lord Jesus Christ, to do a mentoring, a home missions mentoring, where someone like a Pastor Ethridge would come and talk to you and make sure, because you've learned a lot through your work, and we want to help you. We want to help make the road to success as smooth as possible. Now, we do like bumps in the road, because bumps teach us.
Absolutely.
And they help us to grow. So we can't do everything for you, but we can do the best to walk side by side with you to make sure it's good for your family, that you guys can maybe have some, if you have a question, starting a food pantry, you've already done that, so you know how to do those things. And you had even talked about, as a home missions pastor, needing some answers for questions you have as far as establishing a church, starting a church, 501c3s, all those things. And so we're working on getting those things together. So when you actually join the Adopted City program, you actually will have a packet, and in that packet will spell out to you all the check these boxes to make sure you're doing it correctly.
Absolutely.
And so you've done that, and you've kind of done that, really kind of just going out and just doing your go-getter, you're active. You don't have would you say you have ADHD or any of that, or
something? I've got something.
I think it's called the Holy Ghost. So, but you're just a go-getter. You're doing multiple things at the same time, and so you're showing us as a and I guess one of the questions I ask you is the question is, what questions should you ask yourself before you become a church planner? And I think one thing is, am I willing to work? Yeah. Because this is not sit back in your lazy boy, prepare a sermon for Sunday, preach Sunday service, and then say you've done your job.
Yeah.
Right? Because
that's a lazy boy. I need one of those, whatever that is.
With the massager, on my legs. But you're showing, you're basically telling us you've got to get in there. You got to, and I call it digging out trenches. You got to be working the trenches. You're working with people, loving people, and for me, and that's why I said, listen, I really realized I need to get in my city, because I would get frustrated by maybe a lack of people in the pews. Because, even though we talk about it, you do want to see people in the church. You want to see people, and when you're not seeing that growth, you're like, what? So I decided, I'm not going to worry about how many people come to my church. I'm going to go out and I'm going to take the church to them. Right. And so now I don't have to worry about, of course, you still want to see growth in your own building, but there's so much you can do outside of your building, that I'm hoping people just realize pastoring is not just getting a building, getting a group of people and preaching on a regular week. It's reaching your city. Right. I've done funerals for people because I'm the chaplain. People I don't even know that have some people have been killed in our city. I mean, just crazy things. And here I'm doing a funeral, but guess what? All those people are coming in, serving them. I'm serving them. I'm helping them. I'm going to the funeral home with them to help, because what I've noticed is so many people don't have pastors. I already gave the number. 100 million people don't go to church. So these people don't have a pastor. So they have no idea how to prepare for a funeral. They have all these little things that we do because we're pastors, that they don't have a pastor. So all of a sudden I become their pastor, even if it's for a weekend. Even if it's for one service, I became their pastor. Absolutely. And I'm comforting them. So when it comes down to a place where they need help, they know one place that was there for them at their worst time. So that's kind of...
And I think, Pastor Trachsel, we can get the mindset that our church has become a gathering place, but the truth is that it's a sending place. We ought to be sending people out to do the work of God. He said to go ye, not come in thee, but go ye.
Yes.
And so, I don't believe that God is measuring success or effectiveness by how many we get in our building.
Right.
I've, yesterday evening walking down the sidewalk, watching cars lined up for a city block around the park.
Yeah.
Those people rolled down the window and said, hey, pastor, and I don't know if they'll ever come to one of our services per se or a Bible study. But when they're in need, they know who to call for prayer. They know that pastor is going to be available to pray with them.
Right.
And I've walked up to car windows and people with tears streaming down their face and being able to pray with them.
Right.
So not only in the park, they now come to our building for a drive-through food giveaway once a month as well. They line up all the way around our building to give out food. And there was a financial commitment with that. And God told me not to worry about it. Do you know in the last year, God has took care of that need every single time.
Wow.
The church has not had to spend any money on that fresh food program.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's been provided for.
And that brings us to the next thing as far as for a church planter, you eventually do want to see a building, have a building, someplace to go. How does that work? Did the Lord just open up heaven and you saw a light come down over a building?
Almost.
How did
for
you
me
find
being by trade, my vocational position
and
is.
By the way, folks, he works full-time job. He's got children, wife. So I mean, you're busy.
7 nursing homes we manage now in our company, and so I'm not going to lie to you. It's a struggle. Balance is a severe problem.
That's a show in itself.
Absolutely.
Balancing our family, it's very easy to get out of balance.
The need is so great in the community and pastoring and ministry and food programs. There's always something that needs to be done. And I feel like, man, if I can squeeze out more than 24 hours in a day, I'll try and do it somehow. Like the sun stands still or something. Lord, help me out here. Right. But it gets overwhelming. And me as a manager, director, vocationally and looking for a building, I know rent's not cheap in today's world.
Absolutely.
And so trying to find a building that will accommodate the church plus the community needs was difficult. I had my eyes set on a building in Jonesville right away. I saw a building, saw a for rent sign. It was vacant. Man, this is perfect. Right on the cusp of downtown. Looks like a church building even,
Yeah.
And went in there and man, there was no way I could ever afford that, But while I was there, God used that as a stepping stone.
Yeah.
He didn't just smush it and say, no, close the door there. But God opened another door through that door.
Right.
And somebody stopped in and said, hey, what are you doing here? While I'm meeting with that building owner, another guy stops in. And says, hey, what? So 20 minutes later, I'm down in the current building that we're in.
Wow. Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, 11,000 square foot building, used to be an old YMCA type building.
Yep.
And it had a humongous swimming pool in the basement. And
so this is a great place to baptize people.
What am I going to do with this place? I look at it and I'm like, maybe a baptistry here, but what?
Church up top and vacation down below.
I'm like, what's going on? I said, man, we could never afford this.
Yeah.
What's going on? And, gave it a little bit of time and, paths crossed and God just presented opportunities. And before I knew it, I had the keys in my hand.
Right. And sometimes you can't even explain how everything happens. Yeah. It's a walk by faith.
Absolutely.
And if you feel that you're called to start a church or plant a church, God will open the doors necessary as you need them. The Bible says thy word is a light unto my path, right? So it doesn't illuminate the whole plan the first 3 years. No. It's just one step at a time. He gives you enough light to make that one step.
Absolutely.
And so you're showing that you didn't have a building, but you started. You already started the work without a building, and then the Lord blessed you with a building that you have today. Mission Apostolic Church in Jonesville.
And I heard something a few months ago that really hit home to me. If you pursue the vision, the provision will come.
Absolutely, it's so good.
And so when you put your trust and confidence in God, God will present opportunities. Now, there's problems that are going to arise.
Yeah.
But God will allow opportunities to arise with those problems.
Right.
You know, there'll be some setbacks.
Right.
There'll be some times that you look at things. There'll be some Bible studies where, you know, 1 or 2 people show up, you know, and you're like, what have we been doing for a year? You know, what's happening? But be encouraged, be of good strength that God, when you pursue his vision and his calling and you listen to his direction, man, I could never do this by myself. You know, it takes a family of people. It takes my children, my wife to be involved.
Yeah. So let's talk about, for someone that has children, you know, your children will go through things that other children don't have. I remember leaving a church that I came from a youth group of 250 kids to a youth group of like 10. And like I lost all my friends or whatever. So your kids, but the beautiful thing is your kids are used in a way that they might not be used in a bigger church. Sure. So how do children help in church work?
Well, for one, we still stay connected to home. Mm-hmm. You know, if
absolutely.
If our children were in a place that they needed to go and attend, you know, a youth function or youth service or something at the home church, they could go back and do that.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
we tried to make sure we schedule our stuff on off nights of the home church so that they have that, you know, and we trust that they'll be transparent with us and say, hey, Mom, Dad, I'm struggling with this. I'd love to go back and, you know, be a part of youth class at Calvary or, you know, at home. And so we allowed that door to stay open. Don't burn the bridge. Don't close the door because your family's going to need it.
Yeah.
But they are active in music ministry, media with the church, the live stream, you know, all those things. I can't do all that on my own.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way that I could micromanage or, you know, take control of all the elements that needs to go into planting a church and making it effective, you know, and using the resources that we have available to us today.
Right.
So my kids are active in that, and they know that, man, I'm gonna, you know, do it the best I can, and they do that, you know, and there'll always be some setbacks and some issues, you know. Hey, we need to adjust this, tweak that, but it's a process, you know, it's a work in progress, and so they're adamant about being involved in those things and having a burden and a passion to do that because they not only does Dad need them, but the community's relying on it,
right?
And so they want to be a part of that,
right? That's great, and that develops them. How about when someone, let's turn the page here, overcoming setbacks and discouragement, possibly we tried once and it didn't work out, door closed, you know, I thought we had the right thing, we were going. I do know that you pastored in, you'd pastored in Indiana for a few years, and it closed. And when you a pastor, and do you feel, was there any part of you that said, you know what, I'm not going to try this again, I'm just going to go to church and help, or how does that work?
If I was basing everything on emotion, you know, I would have looked back. It was actually, we were 20 years old. My wife and I we were kids, you know, and we had to pastor a wounded group of people, you know, and I said we had to because I didn't see another option. I said, in order for these people to have, you know, a church, man, I got to step up to the plate and I've got to do this. You know, there was nowhere else they could go in the community there at the time in Northwest Indiana. And so at 20 years old, we took a church. The church had a building. They lost the building. Wounded group of people, lost their pastor and first lady. And we had to pick up the fragments and try to rebuild. Did I do everything correctly? Oh, man, no. I was a kid, man. And I didn't know everything. But I surrounded myself with some good men.
Right.
You know, you need a fellowship. You need some organization in your life to make sure that, man, I'm making the right decisions. You know, I'm doing the right things because I'm just a kid. I don't know, you know. And God was gracious enough that when things did go wrong or I made the wrong decision, I had some good men that could stand behind me and say, man, you didn't know any better.
Right.
You know, and so it was a learning experience. We were there 9 years, from 20 to 29 years old. And God, you know, he just moved some families on. They moved out of state. We were able to turn over the families that we had left to another ALJC church there in LaPorte that Pastor Tomei pastors today. Great man of God. And people are doing good there. And so we're excited about what God has progressed with there, and we look back to that now, and obviously today that helps us.
Yeah.
There's some hinges in place there and some guardrails that we know that, hey, we can't run off, run off the road because we've already been down this road a little bit before.
Yeah.
Although planting a brand new church is different than taking a group of wounded people, and so it's been a different chapter for us.
It's all teaching as well. You learned a
Absolutely.
lot in that 9 years.
You've got to be open to, no matter how old you are, no matter how long you've been in ministry. I've been in ministry since I was 14.
Yeah.
I'm 40 years old today. But I don't know everything, but I surround myself today with men like yourself, Pastor Trachsel, that is transparent and genuine and open.
Yeah.
So you need that in your life, in your ministry.
Absolutely. What would you say? And we'll be ending here shortly. Hopefully, someone's getting something from what we're talking about. It's been a great conversation. Really enjoying this. What would you say to someone that's maybe feeling a call, but they're just nervous about stepping out? What questions could they ask themselves, or what would you say to somebody before they start? A couple questions they should ask themselves before they launch out into
is it really an emotion or is it a burden?
Yeah.
A burden is acknowledging that there's a need here.
Yeah.
And I know that I've got to accept the responsibility of this burden. Do you have a passion? Do you have a passion to serve and love people?
Yeah.
No matter who they are, where they've come from, or what element of life they're in. You've got to love people.
Right.
I'm still an introvert, but I had to push myself to be extroverted because I knew that the first time I pastored and ministered and if I do some of them personality traits the same way, I'm going to fail at some of this because the community needs an extroverted person. It's like a magnet drawn. People that have a hunger are drawn to somebody that has a burden to help solutionize.
Right.
So you've got to ask yourself, am I willing to step out on a tree limb, cut the limb off, and watch the tree fall?
Yeah.
Because you can't think about it in the sense, well, what if the limb doesn't hold me? Or what? It's a total operation of faith.
Right.
And you got to make sure you have the confidence within yourself. There's days I struggle with that. There's days I wake up and say, man, I don't know that I can do everything that needs to be done.
God help me.
But with God, all things are possible.
That's right.
And so I got to remember, I'm laborers together here with God. I'm not on my own here.
Is it emotion or is it burden? That's a big that's a mouthful right there because you can be emotionally driven. But that's not very deep. A burden will keep you through those hard times when it's easier to quit. But maybe last thing I'd like to ask you to maybe give us some. What would you like to say to that church planner, that guy that's out there, that husband, wife that have a burden? Is there anything you'd like to give them, if you could give them some words of advice before they start? What would you say to them as they get started in their journey?
Well, first of all, have some people in your life that you can just be plain and transparent with. That you can pick up the phone or you can drive over to their house, and they understand the burden. They understand the passion. They understand the frustration at times. There's going to be times, Mr. Trachsel has drove down to Jonesville, and seen what's going on there. And sometimes we've sat across the table and I said, hey man, what do you think about this? You may be transparent and say, man, you're nuts. You're crazy. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? And put you back in check. But you can't just, even your husband and wife, man, your wife needs somebody to have as an outlet. You need somebody to have as an outlet and balance, man. Your relationship with each other, your family, you've got to balance, man. I struggle with that at times. It's hard because I see the needs of the church and the community, and I always just want to do more because I've got that passion and drive to do so, because I know, man, this is the calling of God.
Right.
And time's running out.
Right.
But yet there's more and more work that needs to be done, but yet fewer laborers to do the work. And so if your husband, wife, family searching for the things of God, make sure you've got a support team. You've got to have a couple individuals, even if it's not a massive multitude of people, you need to have that established before you step out on that limb and you're out there hanging out by yourself. That's why it's so important to have a department like Missions America, Adopt a City Work, have a group of people that's there praying for you, encouraging you, shoot a text, phone call, man, praying for you today. how's it going over there?
Yeah.
Be transparent with me.
Yeah.
Because we say things are going good.
I know.
And sometimes we're lying, man. We're just straight up telling a lie.
That's right.
And things aren't going good. But I need to have somebody that I can be transparent with.
Absolutely.
And say, man, I'm having a down day, man. I know God's working. I know things are going good.
Right.
But, man, I'm not in this by myself. And I can't do this alone.
Right.
You're just going to set yourself up for failure.
Yeah, that's so good. One, be transparent. Two, have a group of people around you. And, of course, we can't cover all of this church planting. Church planting is a life. And,
so many layers here.
One show can't do that, but I appreciate Pastor Ethridge and his family, what they're doing. If you want to, you can support Pastor Ethridge and his family as home missions. We have a giving page at missionsamerica.aljc.org. That's missionsamerica.aljc.org, and you can give the giving link, and then look down. You'll see Pastor Etheridge's name on the list there, and you can bless him each week. I know that each week and each month, I know that a lot of times home missions pastors pay out of their own pocket for finances for their building. So if you want to help him, that'd be a great blessing to them, their family, and continue to work and see revival happen in Jonesville, Michigan. That is all the time we have today. But if you are interested in knowing more about the AAC program, home missions program, you can please visit missionsamerica.aljc.org, missionsamerica.aljc.org, and we would love to help you get going towards your journey to reaching a city that you have a burden for. You don't have to do it alone. You can do it with a group of people that will help. People like Pastor Etheridge and myself would love to see God do great things for you and your family. God bless you. Thank you for being part of this show today. God bless in Jesus' name.
Thank you.